Greetings everyone, and welcome to the review for update 1.68. 3 new cars, some quality of life fixes, no escapes this time around, so not a lot to really look at, but otherwise we have something to look at. So let's dive right in and see what we have. So that comes courtesy of the Mazda Infiniti RX-7 Type R there. An older Mazda RX-7 that's been there basically since the first Gran Turismo, except for a few games. So let's see what this returning car has on offer this time around. So as we go in, car maintenance and service, we see there's a wide body you can put on here. So if you're looking to do some recreations of some certain Eleventh edition cars there, that is certainly an option. Do be warned that this apparently does affect some of the options here. For example, front end, look at that. If you've been missing that front flare there, then you'll be happy to know that it's back. On the sides here, you have this flare there. Very extreme stuff there if you want to get into that. At the rear, some little bodywork extensions there. That diffuser that's seen on so many other cars there. And then the wing, and you're going to find most of them a bit familiar. That one, this one in particular. And of course there's a custom wing stem, which I think was going to come in handy if you're going to do some certain stuff with it. So, you can do those there. And obviously use your hood pin and all your stuff. And then front grille, I want to point this out. You can debadge the Mazda there, so you can remove the old logo. And as for the car itself, it handles pretty good for its zero there. Obviously it's not going to be the super sharp thing there that we get nowadays, but it's still a fantastic thing to drive. And it's still a fantastic thing to listen to, honestly. And so there's potential in this car there. And it's just waiting somewhere in there to be unleashed. And that explosive noise comes courtesy of the Camaro 1969 race mod. So it's kind of a remake, kind of also not. Or reinterpretation, you could say. But it's essentially a resto mod done up in a pro touring racing build. And you can see some of the colors there available. All of them look pretty nice there. So it's an interesting interpretation here. It's the first time we've seen PD do something like this with an original. So let's purchase this thing. And as we do, let's see what you can do with this. So we go on the parts there, and one of the first things you can do is kind of remove these bumper parts there, which are either carbon fiber or matte black there. You can also remove the splitter if you choose type B, if that's not doing it for you. And then we go to these sides here, and you can remove those as well if those are not your thing. So you can kind of get a somewhat close to normal Camaro. Likewise, you can remove that carbon fiber piece there and just get a clean black back bumper there. And likewise, you can remove the spoiler there, and you can add those things if you want, if you're into that. It's not exactly my cup of tea, but you know, go for it if that's what you like. And as for the front grille, you can change the grille mesh and add this hood here. So if this looks like a certified drag racing classic to you, then you got that option. But as far as track performance, it is insane for something on sports mediums, the car handles ridiculously good. This is really quick considering the amount of power this thing has on delivery at any point and at any time. And if it's that good on those, imagine what it'll do on the racing slicks. Sound here comes courtesy of the Renault Captur S Edition. So obviously the first time in a long while we've had an SUV added to the game. As you can see, all the colors available for this vehicle here. So a car that's basically, it's not an EV, it has part EV stuff in it, or part hybrid, mild hybrid technology as they say, but otherwise, it's essentially an ICE vehicle. It's a manual, so anybody who doesn't like EVs, you'll be happy to know that this is not one of those. So, let's take this thing and see what you could do with it. So as far as wide body is concerned, you can definitely do that. You're not going to notice the biggest difference with this until you see it from certain angles. It's not going to be readily apparent, but you can definitely do that. And as far as other parts is concerned, at the front, do a little square treatment, and it just makes that gray part black there. Sides, you could just add this little trim at the bottom, not a lot. The rear, you can get rid of the Captur badge as well as the rear window wiper, and I did a little diffuser portion, so that's a little interesting. And then the wing part, you can get rid of the roof rails, add this little spoiler. And then this wing, this is probably one of the coolest looking wings I have seen on one of these SUVs there. I have no idea where that is from, but that looks really cool. And as far as the car handling itself, again, it's another nice handling SUV there. You know, it just goes where you want it. You know, it doesn't feel, there's not any understeer, no oversteer. It just goes where you want it, just point and stuff like that. And of course, from what I've heard, it is kind of built on the chassis of the Clio, so I suppose I shouldn't be surprised with that, but it's a darn little fun thing, and that's just, you know, untouched. Imagine what you can do once you start really taking this thing to the limits in terms of modifications and so forth. So, one addition is a new seasonal menu, and of course, all you need to do to complete it is to get each of the new cars that have been added. So as you can see there, we have the Camaro 1969 Race Mod, the Renault Captur S Edition, and the Mazda Infiniti RX-7 Type R. So, receive a reward, and you will get a 5-star roulette ticket, which usually means a high-priced car from Brand Central. So, what's that? We have 4 new races added. In North America, we have the American Club Cup 700 and Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. We have the World Touring Car 800 at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. So that will be a 3rd race added for this track since its edition back in December. In Europe, the Dragon Trail, we have the European Sunday Cup 400. This is for Dragon Trail Gardens Reverse, I believe. And of course, Kyoto Driving Park, Miyabi, the Japanese Clubman Cup 550. So that's one added for the Asian event. And then of course, a new driving experience for Grand Valley South. This Mines GTR, so definitely a different feel than the car used for Highway 1. And then another interesting addition is now BOP being allowed in time trial. So what this means is, for instance, here's a Ferrari 296 GT3, the time I did back in December. Now this obviously falls under the PP thing since it has no BOP applied. And if we were to go over here, you won't see it here because there's no BOP applied. So what BOP being added in time trial essentially means is that you can now do times with these cars with BOP applied, and they'll show up there. They won't just be blended under the same performance points as you see there. They'll now be in their own separate category from that point on. Of course, speaking of time trials, the SUV Powerboard is back, and of course it was going to be back. With this new car being added, naturally there was a question of how did it do against the other SUVs, so I decided to do that. So we're going to take it around, we'll do it take as usual, and you know the rules, sports medium or comfort medium tires, the dealers, and nothing touched, just a lap around this track, test everything in every aspect. And so far through the first few quarters there, this red capture is doing pretty much all of that. It's very pointed. Again, no understeer, no oversteer, very much a point and go kind of car there. And thankfully, the SUVs, for the most part, they've been that. And there's only been now one outlier, we all know that one. And it's just the worst of everything. This car, thankfully, does not approach any of those. It's very good to drive there. It's done very good in the tighter stuff. It's doing really good in the fast portions as well as the mid-speed, where you carry a little speed, you don't necessarily brake, but you also kind of let off just to get traction. I do this corner here, look at that, hits the curb, barely affected at all, so the car is really good there. And now for the corkscrew. This is one of 3 corners I find that really brings out how bad a vehicle tends to be. Hard braking for the corkscrew there. Now look at that. Goes right through there. No effect whatsoever. Then we come through this corner here. Again, hardly anything. Now it just takes that corner really well. Now we're coming upon the final corner, and this is another part where you really get to see how bad or how good the quality is of the car. So going here, hard braking, down into the second gear. And right on out we go. And again, no oversteer, no understeer, it doesn't push, it doesn't want to kick everywhere, it just, you point and go. That's pretty much it. So that's a 2 minutes 4 for that one. And unfortunately it's 6th on the board, so it doesn't quite challenge the Mazda or the Peugeot, but I suspect that horsepower deficit was always going to be a bit of a problem. But even if it's slower than that horror show, the Nissan, it's still better to drive. So that's it for this review there. Some great additions with the cars, some mostly quality of life fixes, including the Ferrari steering angle no longer being stuck. So if you enjoyed this, then give it a like, share, subscribe, don't forget to tick the bell icon to be notified when these go live. So that's it for me, and I'll see you guys in the next video.